Welcome to the Harvesting Wisdom podcast. Together we explore the vast landscapes of life, delving into the rich soil of experiences, sowing the seeds of curiosity, and harvesting the profound wisdom that each episode unfolds. Hello and welcome back to another podcast of Harvesting Wisdom. I'm your host, Mike McMahon. With me today, co-host Dr. Joe Roselle, and we are here today to begin our international series from Africa, and we're in the southeastern Africa. This is the beginning of our ecotourism introduction because we will be taking people, students and other people to Africa. And this was your first trip to Africa, so I told you before, you just don't know. You kept asking me questions, and I said, well, you don't know until you go. How do you think about that now?
Yeah, and it kind of brings me back to Urban Farming Education's mission that we want to bridge the gap between information and action. And you're right. Until you actually put your feet on the ground, talk to people, and experience it, you don't really know. One of the things that I was thankful for was that Urban Farming Education, you, Kim, and Peter, and we have a man on the ground. We've been there for 5 years. Oh, yeah. So it's not like we were starting from point to point. So even though I was kind of like a deer in the headlights, not knowing where to go or what to expect, you kept on telling me you'll figure it out when you get there. It was nice to have an organization with you guys that really knew your way around.
Yeah. We had a good time. We stayed at the hotel that the UN guests all stay at, so we met some cool people. And one night we had that concert was amazing. It was kind of a rock, combination of rock and jazz and maybe some rap style stuff. But it's new music that was, in my mind, better music. I guess that's kind of the place of the source of the music. Some national acts right there, right in they had a big outdoor venue and we had a lot of fun there. We never have a problem having fun.
No, that's weird part. You said we have to go to this concert. When do you get the opportunity to see international acts all in one spot? We truly immerse ourselves in another culture.
And I got to say, some of the concerts I go here, it's like the same music I've heard on the radio over and over and over again, and it's kind of borrowed music, and it's all more about a show. Now the show was great. It was a really good show, but the music was outstanding, and so music lovers, I have a lot of friends who are music lovers. You haven't heard it until you've gone to Africa. And each area that I've gone in Africa has their own twist on music, and all of it's good. So we started. You and I met in Johannesburg.
Yep.
Your lodging.
We stayed on different parts of the city.
Right. So. You did not stay where I recommended.
No, I did not.
Would you recommend to anybody in the future to kind of follow recommendations going forward?
Yeah. So it's a funny story, and this again is a reason why you want to travel, especially to that part of the world with people who have experienced it before. But unbeknownst to me, I picked a hotel that was in the reconstruction part of the city. So there were partially torn down buildings, so it was kind of an experience. But when I met you at your hotel, it was beautiful, and I guess. That's
one of the nicest hotels in the world.
Well, presidents have stayed there. Oprah would stay there.
Joe, that was Johannesburg.
Yeah.
That was God, what's the name of that hotel now? I can't remember. It'll come to me in a minute.
Was it the Saxton?
Oh, yeah. It was the Saxon.
Yeah.
And they have a full-time sax player, a full-time piano player, a great indoor-outdoor areas, phenomenal food. The rooms are appointed, amazing, literally. And I stay in good places a lot. That place was off the charts, although we're not podcasting about them.
No.
But the from there, we went into Malawi. Short hop, and now you're getting it, right? Everything in Africa, there's some hubs, and Johannesburg, for the areas that we're in, is kind of the main hub. When you're coming from the States, Addis Ababa up in Ethiopia, which I had a great time in Ethiopia, but Ethiopia's a bit of a civil, I'm not going to call it a civil war, but civil strife that they've been having, but still I felt welcome and had a great time there, and what a great country that is. But then from the other idea is to go up into Nairobi, Kenya. Those are kind of your three big access points. So for us, currently we're in Malawi, we're in Zambia and Zimbabwe, and I have to go to other countries to see these countries have fit where they need what we have. I think our platform can be, given over to like-minded people. But when I went to Botswana on this trip and Namibia, they have a smaller population. They're big countries, amazing natural resources, and the governments are pretty well run. And so I don't think they have immediate. I'm sure, in any country you've got people in trouble who need help, but I don't see that as having immediate issues. So we probably won't be spending a lot of time there, although I'd love to do some podcasts with some of the friends that I met from one of them was the World Bank controller of World Bank Asia, and will be on soon on a podcast. Her husband, an amazing photographer and a funny Canadian guy, and then the other two were a husband and wife who spent their life working in the Peace Corps and U.S. Aid. And what stories! I mean, it's great to listen to what if my life went that way? What if I did that? And certainly a rich lives that they've all had, and they contributed, to helping the planet. Right?
And honestly, I think that's kind of the uniqueness of this ecotourism platform, because a lot of people like you went on safaris, and you went to some great safaris, but we offer kind of a unique experience. First of all, we now have an international board. We're recognized as NGOs to the government of Malawi, so we have that level of support. But what we're offering, in addition to the safaris, the ecotourism in Zimbabwe, anybody that's interested in climate change or just on education.
Rewilding.
But you can go and see it.
And working communities, large-scale communities in the bush, trying to work, everybody working together and collaborating is amazing. And we'll talk about Zimbabwe later, but that where we stayed at the Run Wild camp, is certainly one of the 2, 3, 4, 5 most amazing places I've been on the planet. And I've been a lot of places on the planet, and I got to say, it was I felt like I was in Jurassic Park or in the Flintstones, with those big stacked rocks and everything. It was just
unique,
and then animals running wild, and it's just really amazing. But this episode is with Ernest, our man on the ground. Ernest is an amazing guy, a retired electrical engineer and teacher, and he kind of runs our program in Malawi, and Ernest has his own farm that we're working with, and he's locating property for us to actually have a couple of farms there that we can teach out of and work out of. So a really important guy to us, and I think he's going to be important to the country of Malawi. So
yeah. And honestly, it was great to see you guys going back and forth during the podcast episodes. He's doing a lot of great things, but you going over and just sharing a little bit of information, fine-tuning, and I don't want to give away too much, but let you talk about it, the difference between his plot of land next to his neighbors doing some of the regenerative farming.
Oh, yeah. So first of all, his house, he's turned his house into a nursery.
On steroids.
And a compost, and he's got diversified, he's got animals and everything else, small. And it goes back to you can do so like a true urban farm. You can do amazing amounts of stuff and profitable on a very small basis. And so that's where he started it all. He didn't want to go and start teaching until he was, his hands were dirty and he'd done a lot of things. And boy, he knows a lot about the plants and the soil over there. And he's used some of the techniques that all we're doing is sharing. In Africa, we're sharing things that we know, that we've seen both here and in Africa. But the idea of composting he's embraced, and mulching. And his farm is about 3 acres. It's terraced in. We'll be laying those terrace in better this month. And he's using trees, so he's a little silva, I think it's called silva pasturing, and with some nitrogen fixers. He's got a diversity of plant material that he's growing. And people don't realize, but this part of Africa is very vulnerable. They've had a couple of droughts. Climate change is global warming everywhere. I mean, I think we're the 30 hottest years has been in the last 30 years, right? And it's not seeming to let up. But in Africa, if you don't believe in climate change, come on with us, because in this particular last 2 seasons, I've gone and people are planting maize, which is 80% of their diet probably, and it grows about knee high, and then it stops. It's just too hot. They don't have the water, and they don't have the resources. And we see it all over. I mean, everywhere, right? And then when we went to his farm, same thing, all around his farm. But his farm, on the other hand, he had bonus crops. He was using the 3 sisters. He had mulched, and he literally, and every one of his neighbors were like, "What did you do?" So, and it started with taking care of the soil, understanding some crop rotations, all the regenerative farming ideas. He's not a deep tiller or any of that stuff. So, without further ado, let's get on to Ernest. This is the first, I think, of 6 in this particular series, and we will continue to talk about the travel and the ecotourism, and hope you all enjoy working or listening to our good man Ernest, and enjoy this episode. Mike McMahon, I'm your host for Harvesting Wisdom, and we're doing another podcast in our Malawi series, our Lakuni. We call it Project Dimba. This is an extension of this. This is the man in Africa who is basically doing everything for us in this garden, but also in other farms and other schools, and in our project over at the schools that have, I think there's 5 schools, 6,000 children, the hospital, the printing press, the church, and we'll do another episode with you over there, trying to do things on a big scale. Our issue over there is community, right? It's incorporating people and that whole thing. But this really is a perfect place for propagation, and propagation can be super profitable. Because we talked about seed. We're going to show me some plants with you did by cuttings, but you're working the soil. You've got water, of course, but you've created your own shade. You've created your own ecosystem here, and now you're at a point where all these small plants can be sold, or they can literally start an entire orchard or the beginnings of a new farm. So that's the advantage in the smaller spaces, is doing that. But walk me through the rest of the plants we've got in the garden here. But a lot of this is seed, and you're taking seed and you're banking it. And maybe you show us where you're holding seed. But tell me then which plants you're growing with seed and which with cuttings, and explain that process to people who are watching.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. The seed ones are like papaya, we use seeds. Chilies, we use seeds.
The chilies?
Yeah, we've got moringa. Moringa, you can either use seed or cutting, but cuttings have to be matured. Okay. It's called comfrey. This is comfrey. Yes, comfrey is very good green fertilizer.
Good fertilizer.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're using this comfrey. And
do you use that in the kitchen at all?
No, but for animal feed.
Oh, it is good for animal feed.
Yeah, and this is Trifostia vulgare. This plant is again good for pesticides and then fertilizer as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this could also, if we make some foliars to spray,
Yes.
this would be something
This
you'd
is
add in your
super
mix.
it's actually a remedy for maize stalk borer.
Oh, okay.
Corn stalk borer.
This keeps the.
Corn stalk borer, with this you're done.
Okay, wow.
So yeah, so maybe as we make advancing this nursery for the community, we need to give them these seeds. Then they plant in their maize.
And you do it like in between rows and this
but
will
we should be able
control.
to harvest up the leaves, scratch them, and then diffuse them in water. Then the water you sprinkle in the
I'm
corn.
kind of curious. I haven't really looked or investigated, but there's a GMO called BT corn. And it's about 80% of the seed now worldwide. I don't know if it's already here in Africa or if you're using corn that the seed is been used here for quite a long time. Do you know where the seed is coming from? For most of the farmers.
Yeah, they've got seed companies that produce seeds.
Right, but do you know what it is that they have?
No, they don't.
So
they
we don't know exactly.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So here you can see. Yesterday I mentioned about onion in bags.
Ah,
so these are the bags.
That's a green onion right there.
Yeah, sure.
And you grow shallots as well.
Yeah.
And so you punch the holes in there.
Punch the
So
holes.
you can. This is almost. I've seen systems that do this, but Joe, if you look, the onions are actually planted in each of those holes, so you can literally harvest. It's kind of like there's a product out there that I guess was inspired or designed by NASA called the Tower Garden, which is using just liquid fertilizers, and it's probably not organic fertilizers, but this is this is kind of like your own version of an organic tower garden. How much banana are you getting out of these banana trees? Quite a bit.
I'll show you one bunch.
Are they the small bananas?
Here we've got about 5 varieties of bananas in this.
You have 5 varieties.
Yeah,
okay.
this is plantain.
Oh, so you do have
the
plantain.
one that is common in Tanzania.
Yeah.
Used as a meal.
Yeah, you cut this and you can fry it. And it's almost or bake it.
That's
almost like a
type.
potato, right? It's a starch. What are these right here?
These are pineapples.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
And do you ever transplant them into the ground, or you just literally grow them in a bag?
At the later stage, I'll put them in the ground.
And how long? So they've been in the bag how long?
Almost a year now.
Grown by seed or cutting?
Cutting.
So these were cuttings.
Yes.
They've been here about a year.
Yes.
They look like you could plant them.
Yeah.
You would probably plant them before the rains.
Exactly.
And they take up a little more space when you're doing that. But how long do you think in the ground?
In the ground, I think they will maybe take another 3-4 months, then they start fruiting. Because they already got odd now. Over a year now.
And then once they fruit, that's it for that plant, right?
No, you only cut up the fruit and then
it'll keep going.
Yes.
So again, another little pineapple farm, or,
Yes.
or maybe one section of your field could be pineapple, and it's a perennial,
Exactly.
right? So one of the cool thing is that you're not shy about using a variety of different plants and different species.
Yes.
So one of the huge things that we have a problem in the world with right now is a lack of diversity. And that's why I was asking, where are you getting your seed? Even I'm not a big fan of corn to begin with, you know that.
I know.
But all these other plants you have so much nutrition value.
Yes.
And the deal is you never know which plant. When they save seeds, and universities are kind of responsible for saving seeds around the world, they call it germplasm, whether it's cuttings or seeds. And the more varieties we have, the better, because you never know when one, especially with a plant like a banana, when it could be infested, right? And you said that you're starting to see a little infestation going. And so but if you were literally relying only on that one variety, you'd be in trouble, right? And you never know which one is going to be the one that saves you, right?
These tomatoes are unique. it's a plant that you can get easily.
No kidding.
I'm telling you.
So now-
They grow 4 meters high.
Holy mackerel. So this is when we talked about, doing the structure,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
they
you've
can
got some
go
wire.
up on top of the roof and they start fruiting.
You can trellis them by having string coming down
Yes.
and pulling up on them, right?
Oh,
and
this one.
tying to them, yeah.
This one, they grow tall.
So now you're able to. The cool thing about seed propagation, and
Yeah.
we haven't spent a lot of time talking about that, but one seed will grow this whole plant.
Yes.
And then how many tomatoes do you think you'd have in one season off this plant?
In one season, for this plant can give you as much as maybe 110, 120.
110, 100 tomatoes, 120 tomatoes. Each tomato, how many seeds would you say is in one tomato? Because
For this type, about from 60 to 100 in one.
so if we talk about 100 conservatively tomatoes
Yes.
coming from one seed, and each one of those
You see
has
100?
100 seeds,
Yes.
I have to do the
10,000.
math, that's 10,000, right?
10,000.
Now you have the ability to do 10,000 tomato plants in
one.
literally one season.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden that 3 acres that you have, we start looking at what you can propagate here in an urban setting. The 3 acres isn't enough anymore.
It isn't.
No.
No, it's not.
And especially when we're talking about putting permanent crops in,
Yes.
like avocado trees and banana trees and
Cassava.
then cassava. We're talking about along the water edges, putting in sugar cane.
Yes.
You're out of space real fast,
Sure.
right? And so it's this balance of what you're trying to do and what you're trying to grow. And the more varieties of things you're growing,
Yeah.
the better it is for the soil diversity as well.
Sure.
Because some plants give to the soil and some take. We know corn only takes.
These maize cobs are the ones that we want to grind and then be part of our organic fertilizer.
Right. Well, this also becomes a good bedding, by the way, for your animals too, right? So, where did you get the rock? I don't see.
We bought it as part of that construction.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is what remained after the construction because the fence has to go up and then we still need this.
And this makes a nice road base, but you can also, it's a little big to add with lime in cement, but certainly you could create a nice road base with it.
So that's where our manure is.
That's
All
your manure.
these bags are manure.
And that's the manure that you're getting from your own,
Yes, from the cow, from the
Animals.
chicken coop, from the animals. Yeah.
just, Joe, right behind is the manure.
Yeah.
And what am I growing right here? What do we got going on?
This is papaya.
Papaya. And you said you're doing very well with papaya right
Yes, that's why I see now they're all fruiting now. Even that one is fruiting. There's one again
now. Yeah.
fruiting in there.
And this is just delicious
Yeah.
fruit, really nutritious stuff.
Sure. So this is the
And
last corn that
this
we
is
have.
is this the last of it?
Yes.
Okay, so that entire field that we went to,
I'll show you the bags inside. What we've already showed.
and you said, if I remember, I can't remember if you generated as much as a final product, as much as 5 tons of it, or did we say?
Yeah, I'm expecting between, because 4 tons is about 50 kg bags.
Okay,
Yeah, so I think we'll be close to that.
some 4 to 5 tons.
Yeah.
And that's just one product you had on the project.
Yes.
And by doing the Three Sisters approach,
Yes.
you were able to maximize space
Uh-huh.
and improve soils.
Exactly.
So you got the intensification over there.
Yeah.
This is super intense here,
Yes.
and it allows you to stay. And the more intense your farm, the more product you have, the more value you have, right? The more food you're creating, the more product you have to sell.
Okay.
I hear it all the time. We see it all the time. People say, I need more space. I can't have this garden. I need 10 acres or 100 acres. You know, we think in terms of, hey, farming needs all this space, right? And some commercial farming does if you're trying to do production for, feeding an entire village or a school. But what's your advice? What's your advice for people who say, I don't have enough space? And if I'm a beginner farmer, and this is not a huge area at all, what's your advice?
I'll tell them, stop saying you don't have space. Confess you're not creative. It's about creativity.
Yeah.
Farming is a passion, and farming is a science.
So there's a science and an art involved,
An art at
right?
the same time. Yeah. So if you don't have the passion for farming, stop dreaming of being a farmer. Yeah, because
perfect.
it won't work.
Yeah.
So even if I give you small space and you don't have the passion, you won't use it.
Right.
Give you 10 acres of land, no passion, there's nothing that will come out of that 10 acres.
They plant
The
one
most
crop
important
and
thing
boom.
is your passion. Your passion in farming will maximize whatever space you have. As a farmer needs to be careful on whatever waste he's having in the farm, because some of these products, they come in back, then they get rotten or whatever, throw them away. But for you to produce a single pumpkin, it means there's a cost for that single pumpkin to be produced. So if you throw it away or it gets rotten, it means you're throwing away money.
And we know that pumpkin, when you took the seed out,
Yes,
it's enables you to grow 100 pumpkins next year,
exactly.
right? And on top of it, you can use it for chicken feed. And
Yes.
this is actually now
Harvest.
post-harvest
Process.
production
Yeah,
or
exactly.
processing.
Yeah, exactly.
And this allows you to eat it like this in any form that you're cooking with vegetables or stuff,
Yes.
or you can grind it into a powder.
Yes.
You can use it as a thickening agent. You can make soups out of it. You can really do so many different things, and even pumpkin bread, right? I mean,
Exactly.
you can make
You can bake.
right.
using this.
Do you use that as a baking product? So,
Yes.
pretty cool. So this is really kind of the epitome of sustainable, intensive farming. This is what we talk about. Urban farming is a
Yes.
perfect prototype.
Yeah.
It's also regenerative because everything you're doing here, you're using diversity here, but you're using every part of the animal that's being, and so your animals and your plants are all together.
Yes.
Sometimes you're using cuttings to propagate. Sometimes you're using seed to
Seeds.
propagate.
Sure.
You're taking advantage of every inch of space in here. And this, for some people, is the actual end product of your garden.
Yeah.
You're eating, you're able to feed your family, sell off some product. But the deal is you're able to grow. All of these bags have a really nice, and time is on your side. You've let these things grow for about a year. Now they've got a real value. We just looked at an area where you just had a small space
Yeah.
with 300 trees, which creates a large acreage of an orchard.
And an abundance of oxygen as well.
Yeah. But the deal is you don't have to go to the commercial farming scale.
No.
You could, Frank is doing this at his house once, and you could do this just at this scale,
Yeah.
have your own meat,
Yes.
have your own vegetables, large variety,
Your herbs.
and your herbs, and basically you're self-sufficient from a standpoint of eating, right?
Sure.
You now have the ability, but on top of it, you have a revenue source, and I would say you might have enough revenues here to pay maybe
For
your rent
utility.
on the house.
Yeah, it's my house. I don't pay rent, but I pay for utilities.
Yeah.
Water and
The
electricity.
utilities,
Yeah,
but if
sure.
you have a mortgage on a house or
You
whatever,
can pay, you can pay.
this is a
can pay.
way of
You
using
can pay.
everything you have for a purpose.
Exactly.
And you don't have to go out and do 3 acres or 10
no,
acres
no,
or
no.
100 acres.
No.
You could literally just do this with it, but we have bigger plans.
Sure.
So we're using this as the
As
propagation unit.
Exactly.
Right? And we've seen where we have greenhouses and shade houses. Here we're doing it naturally,
True.
right? Because you don't have the space to put in a big greenhouse, a hoop house, or whatever.
No.
And your climate here is pretty good. So when you've got all this vertical stuff going on and some of these trellises, you've got some shade areas already.
Yeah.
But you've got to the point where I would say you're only getting partial sun now because you have so much vegetation going.
Yeah, sure.
And partial sun works pretty good for a lot of propagation
Sure.
of a lot of the plants you have. So, yeah, we're seeing what we would consider a regenerative system. It's all organic.
Yeah.
So it's all these alternatives to what is normal agriculture. And normal agriculture in the West is industrial, heavy equipment,
Yep.
pesticides, fertilizers,
Yeah.
buying seed, one-time use. You've separated by being a commercial person doing industrial. All the processes are separated. The animals are not part of the growing. That's separated out.
Yeah.
Fertilizers, pesticides are all purchased in, so you got input cost.
Yes.
You got heavy equipment. You've got seeds that are even being purchased because you're not in the seed business unless you're a seed company or seed farmer, right?
Yeah.
But so you're doing all of those things. The other form of agriculture, which is about half the world, is what we just saw yesterday at your neighbors.
Yes.
And that is sustenance farming on a small scale, a family scale, where a person's going out, may not even own the land, and is putting down seed, relying on a little bit of labor, creating the windrows and such, but they're relying on that rain.
Yeah.
And we saw how it didn't rain, we got problems, right?
True.
And we talked about yesterday that seed that didn't quite finish the plant off. And what was missing is you can fertilize it all you want with a chemical fertilizer, but that fertilizer is not available to the plant without some biology and or without water, right? Because that water is helping to circulate the nutrients that eventually go to the plant, to the plant roots.
Yeah.
And what they'll end up with instead is excess nitrates, and in other words, they just polluted that field. So when it rains, that water is going to go down into riverbeds and things like that.
Sure.
And now you have more nitrogen in there than you need. So this right here is what we call the alternative to conventional farming.
Okay.
Conventional farming in a lot of parts of the world, about half the world, means no equipment, no pesticides, nothing, but it's rain-fed.
Yes.
And then we have other conventional farming in the West, which is all industrial, heavy inputs in equipment and capital and that kind of thing. And there's about 1 million terms.
Yeah.
We hear about permaculture. We hear about biodynamic. We hear organic. We hear regenerative. We hear sustainable intensification. All kind of very similar concepts. They're just alternatives to the two conventional methods right now.
Yeah.
And I leave it up to the listener to decide which is better for our environment and which grows a better, tastier crop. I leave it up to anyone who is capable of processing, thought and decision. And best thing to do is to come and see it.
Yes.
To see it side by side,
Yeah.
to understand it. And there's no denying it at that point. So anyway.
And we're getting now to see the grilled and taste the grilled pumpkins.
Yeah, the only question I got is where did you do your biochar pit? Is that
Close to the tank there. But now it's like we've leveled it.
So you already leveled it.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
So your tell me how you did the bio. You just did it in a small space in the corner of your yard.
Yeah, sure.
And tell me how you did that.
We had to put up all the branches, tree branches, the corn stalks, whatever we were supposed to carbonize.
And how did you stack those? Like a
You
pyramid?
like a pyramid. It's like a pyramid. You dig a small hole, pyramid it up, and then cover it with the banana leaves, some amount of soil. You give one opening for igniting and another opening at the back.
And you're just doing one opening at the top. Sometimes they'll do a couple.
No, we normally put one like on the opposite side of the one that you're igniting up.
Okay, so you got a little bit of circulation of air, but not too much.
Not too much.
Just enough.
And then you control again the air circulation.
Yeah.
If it's too much, then it's gonna frame up.
Yeah.
Don't want it to frame up.
Similar to when, a lot of peoples have cooked animals in the ground, right? Roasted in the ground.
Yes.
A delicious way of doing it, real slow cooking. And this is what you're doing with that biochar,
Exactly, yeah.
is you're taking really oxygen out of the equation.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And you're not buying an expensive piece of equipment to do the work.
No.
And you're ending up with that product. So how often did you burn? Because you can burn almost every 2 weeks, about 8 to 10 days, right?
Yeah.
How often did you burn?
Yeah, about 3-4 days you're done, then you put up again.
Okay, so you did it much quicker.
Yeah, much
Yeah.
quicker. Because it's like burning 24/7.
It depends on what you're burning,
hours.
right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if you're
sure.
burning tree branches that
Yes.
are more dense,
Yeah, it'll take a little bit longer.
it's going to take you that as much as almost 2 weeks or whatever to burn. So you burned in one pit. How
Yes.
much of the biochar did you end up with? A wheelbarrow full, or 2 or 3 or 4 or 6? Or
About 3.5 wheelbarrows,
3.5 wheelbarrows.
Yeah.
And you're able to do that once every week or 2 weeks.
twice a week.
And you're doing how often during the season or during the year do you do that?
We normally do it when we have the materials. Like right now, if you have the material,
So you're
you do
taking
it.
crops
Yeah.
residue for your basic.
Otherwise, it becomes expensive to transfer the materials just for the sake of
I got it.
carbonizing.
Just for making it. But we know that it's lightweight, really.
Yes.
It's very, very lightweight.
Yeah.
So you're not doing it by weight when you're blending. But we know about 5% biochar mixed in with your compost.
Yeah.
And it could be composted animal manure and vegetable manure.
Yes.
But about 5% is going to be activated, and it's going to create that space for the microbes to live in.
Yes.
But it also, we just talked about using it to neutralize the smells.
Yes.
If you cover chicken with it, it really absorbs smells. But the most important thing is that it holds about 10% or 10 times its weight in water.
Yeah.
So it does so much to help your compost pile.
Sure.
So
It's getting sunny, can get in.
yeah. So I've been approached by lots of people, lots of friends, a lot of interested people in why donate or invest into UFE, and why not do another charity? And there's a lot of charities out there, but with what we're doing, the idea of everything we do is the massive return on investment. So the programming that we are involved with doesn't require lots and lots of other money to come in, but for as little as $1,500, you and I just talked about the chicken project, right?
Yes. Yeah, sure.
So walk me through the chicken project for a minute or two.
Yeah, the chicken project will be the first one because chickens won't need a season. They'll hatch as time go by, and they multiply very fast. And the local chickens are very expensive here in Malawi, so they can fetch good revenue for our students when they're doing the projects.
Yeah, and what we're talking about is taking an initial investment of $1,500, and within 1 year,
Yeah.
each of those students has generated almost 5,000. So we're talking $50,000. I got to tell you that return on investment from any standpoint is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But that allows us to put that money in a kitty,
Yes.
and then control that money to a point where the students are using it for education.
Yeah.
You don't want 12-year-olds or 14-year-olds to have quite that much access to money, but it can help pay for college,
Yes.
buy land, buy cars. So, but the money, when it sits in the bank, also can be used in a pool to do a lot of other things. I visualize microloans in the community, using some of that money that's sitting there, and it's drawing interest in a bank as well. So that's just one program, and how that program is what we really consider more than just sustainable, but it's got a return on investment that's incredible. We're live right now from Malawi. We're outside of the town of Lakuni, and we're here with our main agriculture expert, Ernest, who kind of runs the program here in this part of the country. And this is his personal property, which is about 3 acres. It's on a hillside slope, and we'll look at the slope in a minute. But welcome, Ernest, and say hello to everyone worldwide that's watching this. And let's talk about what crops you're making here.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. This is Malawi. Welcome to Malawi, as Mike said. This is out of the city of Lilongwe, and in this garden we're doing corn, done pumpkins, and beans as well.
At the same time?
Yes, as three sisters.
The 3 sisters from
Yes.
Native Americans.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, because of the drought this year, the beans didn't do well, but for the pumpkins, wow, we got almost 2 tons from this piece of land of pumpkins.
And how much corn did you
Corn we're still sharing, but so far we've got about 2.5 tons of shelled corn.
Okay.
Already.
And were you about halfway through, or?
Yeah, almost halfway through now.
So you might have 5 tons of corn
Close to.
and an extra 2 or 3 tons of pumpkin.
Yes.
And this year, because we haven't really treated this soil or worked with the irrigation the way we want to, the beans didn't do what we wanted them to do, but I can still see that they're in the soil. So we know that they have fixed some nitrogen.
Exactly.
So we know this soil is probably better than when we started, but we'll be doing some soil tests before and after on this.
Yeah,
So that's great.
and this year we used much of organic fertilizer because we didn't use much of chemical. What we did was biochar, it's a manure, and then applied in the field.
Right.
Sure.
So we're gonna look at the biochar pit in a different. I don't know if you were making that here or making that near your house.
At my house.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll look at that next. But the biochar is a great product that can be added in at about 5%. It has to be activated, of course, but you're using manure to activate.
Yes.
And so that's the idea of trying to organically. So right now you're not broadcasting anything. You're putting it on
the plant station.
when you're either planting and you're sowing.
Yes.
Or you're top dressing it, right?
No, we're putting up when we're planting.
You are.
Yes.
Okay.
And then
good
we
job.
did have another top dressing by digging up a small hole close to the plant, and then apply some and then bury it.
Okay, great.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So
in
that's-
here we have vetiver. This is the vetiver grass. Basically, vetiver is used to prevent soil erosion. So it holds up the soil because this place is slopy, and then don't want to have more soil washed out of the field. And this is lemongrass. Lemongrass,
right inside.
yeah, it's a herb. At the same time, it also prevents some termites in the field.
Right.
So it's like
And this we talked about the idea that you can do a lot with that, right? You can
Yes.
make teas out of it, but
Yeah.
another cool thing is making soap.
Okay.
So as we have some of that animal husbandry, we can burn off some of that fat,
Yes.
and we can blend this and have a really nice smelling, perfumey soap that you're making with it.
Okay. And what you're seeing in here is what we call bitter leaf. Bitter leaf is another herb that you can use as a pesticide as well. But it's again good for the kitchen.
Right?
Nigerians normally use it as a vegetable.
Yeah.
Very good.
You're using the leaf,
Yes.
and you're making. The big thing here is you got about a third of your plate is sema.
Yes.
We're trying to make that a smaller part of the plant,
Exactly.
or the plate, right? But you also then, I think the common dish is, I don't know if you call it ragu or stew or whatever, but you're using pumpkin leaves, you use any kind of leaf you can, right?
Yeah.
And then you're adding some vegetable in, like a squash and a tomato
Yes.
base type thing, or even an onion, and then a little bit of meat.
Yeah.
And you're making, and that's really the nutrition portion of the dinner, and the sema is kind of the filler, right?
Yeah. And what you have in here, these are pigeon peas.
Okay, great.
These are
Another legume.
Yeah, these are pigeon peas, the normally drought resistant. See now the rains have stopped, but that's when now they're flowering. See, that's when they're now flowering.
Yeah.
When
So they're flowering about a month. It takes about a month or two to
Yes.
take.
And normally when you plant them once, they stay here for another 2-3 years. Keep on harvesting them. When
Yeah.
you replant again.
So that's a perennial.
Yes.
know, something
very
that's
exactly,
lasting on
exactly.
and on. And I see some of that back in there also, that That's also generated. That's a grass maggot. Are you doing anything with that? Just keeping some of it as erosion control, or I know that when I was in Botswana, they take some of that that flour off, and they can actually eat some of that.
Yeah, they do.
You know. So So we just walked down the hill a little bit to talk about these crops. So these are, you'd consider these plots, right? And we haven't really worked the soil control or the erosion yet. We'll talk about that a little bit. What are these crops that you're growing in here?
Okay, what you're seeing in here, this is okra. We've got okra all the way.
So you have a row of okra.
Yes. But
You
now,
have several rows that you
like
grow.
this okra now is like it's matured. You can't use it in the kitchen now. We're keeping it here for seed
Okay.
for the next planting.
Yeah.
And what you have here, this is hibiscus. This is hibiscus.
Yeah.
We have this hibiscus as well. We harvest so soon. And standing there, just smell it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about this is the okra right here, and you got vines going everywhere down below in here. But this is a form of seed banking, right? So you started with a handful of seed,
Yes.
and now you're able to, and you're not going to go with a natural dropping here, right? You're going to physically come in and harvest and bank some of the seed.
Yes.
And so when you're doing that, it looks to me like you're still about a month away.
Yeah.
It's still kind of green.
Yes.
And then you'll come in before the birds beat you to it. And you'll come in and you take this, and then you'll bring it all back,
Yes.
probably to your facility at your house,
Mhm.
and you'll clean it, winnow it, and clean it and store it, right?
Okay. It's like this. This is dry.
Oh,
now.
that's ready. Yeah.
So this is ready.
Perfect.
If you break it, you have the seeds inside.
Yeah, they're small seeds too.
Yeah, but this one I think it didn't mature well. But when it's but these ones are. So what we're going to do is when they dry up, we come and then pick up all these, take them home and then show them out and then keep the seeds.
Right. And then with that seed,
Yes.
you're storing it in a cool place.
Yes.
Until the next season.
Exactly.
And who knows what the germ rate is on it, but I'm guessing it's going to be pretty decent as long as you take the seed off at the right time, clean it, and store it properly.
Sure.
You should have a pretty high
Yeah.
germ rate on that seed because it's a healthy plant, you can see.
But again, this okra that is actually maturing, it means we've already done some harvesting of okra that we've already eaten, sowed and eaten.
So you left, what percentage did you leave in the field? 20%, maybe 10%?
About 15%.
15. So
Yeah.
the idea there is that 85% of the okra was harvested, but that 15% you left for seed
Exactly.
what kind of increased yield will you have from last year to this year?
Okay, like what we planted in this garden, in these rows, was like a kg of seed.
Okay.
Less than a kg of seed, maybe about like
A kg is the metric.
Okay, 75
Equivalent.
grams is how much in pounds? I'm not too sure. 2 pounds.
Yeah, about
Yeah, so
that.
we plant about 2 pounds. But you can see if we harvest all these seeds now,
Yeah.
we're gonna get more than 2 pounds.
Yeah, what would you say you're going to pull out of this? More like 10 times that much? Would you get 20 pounds?
No, maybe about
5
5
pounds?
pounds. 5 pounds.
5 pounds.
Yes.
So you're doubling the quantity.
Yes.
And so that's part of the whole process of farming is every year, if you do that every year, you know, it's like compound interest with money, right? Your seed is now becoming a valuable thing.
Yes.
And you might get to the point where your land is limited,
Exactly.
right? But you'll still create that seed.
Yes.
Now you can sell that seed off to your neighbors,
Okay.
right?
It's true. For example, these seeds now they're costing something like 10,000 kwacha per kg, which is like almost $5 per kg.
$5
Over
per
5
kg.
kgs per kg. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Mm.
So $25 worth of seed,
Yes.
and you don't have to pay that next year.
No.
Matter of fact, you now have $50 worth of seed.
Exactly.
And then each year, as you plant more crops,
Yes.
you have more seed. And even at 10 or 15% that you're saving, your seed bank goes up and up and up until you've got your land 100% farmed,
Yes.
and you run out. So you either need new land or you continue to take that seed off, and now you can sell that seed off to neighbors, which is, it's a cool thing. What are we doing with the millet? How much did you grow?
The
How are you
millet
using it?
the millet we had almost a quarter of a kg, but now keeping it because we want to multiply the seed as well, as you've said.
Uh-huh.
Next season we want to do more millet
Okay.
because millet is drought resistant and it's very easy to cultivate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
But
that
millet and corn, they are almost the same. You can actually have your corn to replace millet to replace your corn in the mill.
and so this is all rain-fed
Exactly.
agriculture.
Yes.
And we had a hard time in this southern part of Africa for rain these last couple of years, especially this year with drought.
Yes.
So, what concepts we'll talk about the grading and the drainage and the control of the water in a minute, but the other idea is the inputs into the soil. So we'll talk a little about the biochar one last time, and then we'll look at the area and the pit and how you did it when we go over to your facility, right? So we use biochar in one of our products at Soil Seed and Water, and we put in about 5% of the biochar into our compost product. When we're creating, we have other items as well, zeolite and some other things we put in. But that biochar is going to hold about 10 times of the water weight that the biochar actually takes, right? So if you're actually holding water, compost also holds water and adds fertility and biology, but the biochar really does a big number with it. The other thing is biochar, especially if it's in small pieces, becomes a habitat for microorganisms.
Yes.
So by putting the compost in and having a little biochar component in there, you're really doing some amazing things with the drought. The other thing is that, like we said, we're not capturing all the water, because you can see that the ground undulates quite a bit in here. So it's not like we're looking to till the ground so much as prepare it and level it and create the drainage that we're looking for in the holding capacity, so that we're able to hold more water on each plot. And then the inputs that we're talking about in the biochar itself, what are you burning to create that biochar?
Okay, like you've seen all these maize stalks that are in the garden now remaining.
And maize in the U.S. is called corn.
Okay, fine.
But it's maize is maize.
Corn stalks and all this debris, we're gonna collect all this and then produce our biochar from this material.
Okay.
Including the corn cobs as well.
Okay, so you use the cobs, yeah.
Yes. So
do you put anything else in your biochar?
Yes, in the biochar we're putting up chicken manure.
Okay.
Cow manure.
So you're adding that.
Yes.
But I mean, in the process of burning, is it only
no,
just corn?
burn without anything else. Just this.
Just the corn.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you could, in theory, take some of the millet stalk or even some of this.
And the sunflower stalks.
Sunflower, sure. And
exactly.
if we introduce hemp into this part of the world, hemp becomes a really good biochar as well.
Okay.
As well as taking the seed off and using the seed for a lot of different products. So let's take a look at the ground itself, Joe, here. But this right here, as we can see, we're coming from the top all the way down, but we're also undulating quite a bit, Joe, as if you look at the field, then what you can see is this is going up and down, and water basically seeks its own level. It'll either go down or up. So sometimes, it's hitting and you might have dry spots in here, right? But I see that all of this stuff was furrowed, and in the furrowing process, this was all done by hand then, is that right?
Yeah, sure, by hand.
How many workers did you have?
I've got one worker who mans up the place, but normally we get piece workers as the activity.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
So how
so-
many people did you use to prep the field when you did it?
About 30.
30 people.
Yes,
And-
and that's the way again of helping the villagers to get something for
Sure,
their
sure.
homes.
And
Yeah.
how long did that process take to
About a week.
a week or so?
Yeah.
So in an ideal world, we'd get in a scraper or a bulldozer or a skip loader,
Mhm.
and we'd at least level out the actual plots
Yes.
and create the drainage that we wanted and
Mhm.
make sure that it's level the
Yes.
way we want it leveled, right?
Mhm.
And then you could still come back in with the workers.
Yes.
Instead of using a plow, you could still come back in and hand cut in
Yeah.
all of your
Yes.
your furrows in here. So that's pretty cool. Go there. What's down there, where all those trees are?
Okay. On those trees there is what we call a river, a Lilongwe River.
That is the Lilongwe.
Yes. that's
Same
the-
thing we have in the school.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
What you have in the school, that's the Lilongwe River.
Okay.
But as you move closer to this place, you've seen some grass there. Tall
Yeah,
grass there.
that
At that point there,
shorter grass.
yeah, that area is a bit swampy. So all the water that comes from up there gets
That
collected
holds
there.
in there.
Doesn't go to the river.
Ah.
So there, down there, we've got some wells of water.
So how deep did you go? You dug a borehole.
No, just a simple shallow well.
Oh, a shallow well.
Yeah, about 3-4 meters deep,
Okay.
like a small dam.
Got it.
And then that's where we pump our water now, from there to this tank.
Okay, and you're using a hose and
Yes.
a
And the
small
pump.
sump pump,
Yes,
and you're bringing it. Now this is a tank.
yes,
So you built this,
yes, I did.
and tell us about the construction of that and how that works.
Okay, in this tank, when Doc, there's a white pipe there, down there. That white pipe is the inlet, and the blue pipe is the outlet. So we normally bring up a tap and hook it up in there.
Fill the tank up.
Yes, and then get a hose pipe and then take the water to the area now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about doing for next year is maybe getting a water buffalo,
Yes.
which is a 500-gallon tank,
Yes.
and that tank actually has a pump that reverses back and forth.
Uh-huh.
So you can suck water out,
Yes.
you can push water out of it.
Uh-huh.
But the idea would be is to take a truck or a vehicle,
Yes.
put the water
Mhm.
on it.
Mhm.
You have to cut a little bit of a road,
Yes.
decent road, and because of the slope, that road is going to have to be cut in kind of a switchback fashion, right?
Yeah.
And so otherwise you're going to create another drainage swell.
Exactly.
So it'll allow you to go up.
Yes.
And with that water, what we're talking about is season extension, right?
Yes.
So this year the rains didn't come for 6 weeks; they were late.
Mm-hmm.
You with the ability with having your own water, you can get the seeds started,
Exactly.
and that's the deal.
Yes.
Is that then you've got the seeds started, or
Mhm.
if the seed or the water was erratic,
Mm-hmm.
you'd have the ability to then water in between. Even though it's a lot of work, you'd water in between the rains.
Yeah.
This is all brick. You
Yes.
made this.
Yeah.
The inside of it, you limed it.
With the cement.
So you took a cement lime
Yeah. Yes.
and you created drainage, or you keep it from keeping the water from seeping out, right?
Exactly.
And then this thing, how many gallons? That looks to me about 1,000 gallons or so. What do you think is in there?
Yeah. Over 1,000 gallons.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long does it take you to fill that up from down low
About
with the little pump you have?
about 20 minutes.
Oh wow!
Yes.
So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So every 20 minutes you got
Filled up.
1,000 gallons,
Yes.
and you're using it sparingly
Yeah.
on the plants
More
when you need
especially
it.
on this lower part of the field.
Oh, and that really helps out.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that these fruit trees planted, So we normally open up these fruit trees.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've started putting in a permanent crop or crops of orchards,
Yes.
which are some fruit trees in here.
Yeah.
And because you're down this low and you're close to the marshy area,
Mhm.
that's a great area to do bananas and sugarcane and that
Exactly.
kind of thing, right?
Exactly.
So this is only 1 year.
Yeah.
You've done this in 1 year,
Yes.
and you can see all the organic material you harvested
Yes.
quite a bit.
Yeah, sure.
And I imagine you keep track of cost,
I do.
because at the end of the day,
Yes.
there's no reason to farm unless you're producing something
Yes.
that generates a profit, right?
Exactly.
So we can talk about that in another meeting,
Yeah.
but the more and more you do over time, because
Yes.
a farm takes years to build.
Mm.
Really, it's not something you do overnight,
Mm-mm.
and it takes work and it takes capital investment. But the question is when does that farm start to break even?
Exactly.
That's the question.
Sure.
Because some of the projects you're talking about are pretty significant.
Mm.
Grading terraces, putting in, more solid drainage pipe for the bottom.
Mhm.
All of those things, they do take time and they do cost money. But there's a point in time where the farm becomes truly regenerative. That's a term we've used all the time.
Yeah, sure.
And it's sustainable, right?
Yeah, sure.
Because now you have your own organic materials.
Mhm.
You're controlling the water.
Mhm.
That's natural,
Yeah.
and you're not wasting any of it.
Mhm.
So it'll be an interesting process. What do you guess it's going to be? What you would call break even?
Yeah, I think like in the next two years or 3 years.
2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, sure.
And then once you have it, now you've got 3 acres.
Yes.
You've got profits from that
Yeah.
allow you to expand to 10.
Yes.
And one of the books that I read and I write about, I think I got it. It was a bestseller in 1864.
Mhm.
So it's 160 years old, right?
Okay.
And the name of the book was 10 Acres Enough.
Mhm.
And they talked about how you can generate a tremendous amount of profit
Yeah.
with just a 10-acre farm.
Okay.
And you can control it with your family and with some local people.
Mhm.
And you can control it with all the waste products that we all create.
Okay.
And so that's a pretty cool setup as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're looking at this soil and we're starting to look at some activities. A dark soil generally means you've got some loam in there, you've got some organic content. We're going to do a little experiment with soils in this next week.
Yes.
But I'm looking at this. It's not a sandy soil. It's not gravelly. There's not lots and lots of rock in this area. However, Malawi lakes, that was volcanic millions of years ago. So, how much came down in here, and whether or not, I don't see any real iron deposits that are apparent, but we are seeing the soil over here starting to clod up.
Yes.
Whereas on your area, it's not clotting.
It's not.
So that means it's drying. What happens? We're in May still.
Yes.
So the rains and everything and the crops finished 2 months ago, right? So what happens now throughout your winter? What happens with this?
Okay, this is May, and when we get to August, September, October, towards the rainy season, it gets very, very hot and windy. So all these plants will be dead by that time, and the soil will be bare. And if there's too much wind now, you've got that wind erosion taking up the topsoil and also killing up all the microorganisms that are in the soil to actually improve it.
Do its work. So,
exactly.
So in the winter,
yes,
because there's no real erosion control when it comes to the rains,
yeah,
and climate change doesn't mean you're having less rain. I mean, it is a drought, but you could have a tremendous amount of rain in a 24-hour period, cutting channels and ripping crops out and doing everything. But now, even after maybe what could have been a big year of rain, which it wasn't, but if it had been, now you're starting to dry out.
Yes.
And the first sign of that is when this clotting is happening. When this is clotting like this, it's really hard, and you can see how hard it is. It's hard and it's very dense. Yeah. It's hard to have oxygen in there, and there's no moisture. And two things that your microbes need is a little bit of air to breathe,
Moisture.
and it needs that moisture because to deliver the nutrient to the plant,
Yes.
it's using water so it's the symbiotic relationship between those microbes, which are eating really small organic matter and then releasing and also inorganic matter, whether or not it's whatever minerals are in there.
Yeah.
That water is going to the roots.
Yes.
But we're seeing this clotting already here, but we didn't see it on your land. And it's only going to get worse.
Exactly.
Yeah. So perfect example.
Okay.
This is really the reason that urban farming is in Africa. It's a kind of a better place for us to operate than in the U.S., where agriculture is considered a conclusion already of the methods. Here we are going back because we don't have to have pre-industrial here because the industrial agriculture never really hit this part of the world, right? So we've got these systems in place, and the reason we're here and working with people like you and the kids at the school and the teachers and the agriculture department at the university is what we're trying to do is bring in systems and working with partners to make what is considerable change. So the question I would ask for you right now is, what's the one takeaway you have from this 1 year? Because you haven't been growing for a year, but this plot for 1 year, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so some of these techniques you've tried before, some are new to you. What's your takeaway that you would give to this neighbor right here?
Okay. One thing is the Three Sisters method of planting helped.
Okay. Say thank you to the Native Americans.
Yeah, thank you, Native Americans, for the Three Sisters. Yeah. Was provided like a soil cover, so the moisture was like maintained. And secondly, the application of organic manure in the garden kept the soil moist and nutritive as well. So the plants were actually comfortable with our organic fertilizer application.
And then it's crop selection.
Yes.
And now what we're going to see over the period of the next few years is crop rotation.
Exactly.
But we're also going to see erosion control.
Exactly.
Which is a big part of what has to happen.
Yeah.
Right?
So all this has been an eye-opener to me from urban farming education.
Thank you for joining the Harvesting Wisdom podcast. Click subscribe and like for ongoing insightful conversations. Explore our webpage for show notes and additional resources. Visit our guests' webpage for deeper insights. Your engagement is the foundation of our journey, and until next time, keep pursuing wisdom.